Yesterday was a momentous day for the United States, for SpaceX, for Elon Musk, for humanity. And of course, the usual suspects will frame it as a complete and utter failure. Elon Musk launched into and away from the pad what will be the next Starship, as they call it. I'm going to play for you the insight from an engineer and also from one of the founders and investors of SpaceX and how they describe it. And it's so different than what you will hear on the media and on Twitter. Just so you guys know, there was a 50-50 shot that it would even leave the launch pad, according to Elon Musk. This was an iterative attempt to launch Starship, and it launched. And they got data. And it is a magnificent day for humanity in terms of the possibility of going to Mars, in terms of reducing the cost of putting things into orbit massively, and in terms of Earth travel, where we'll be able to go in half an hour to Asia from America instead of being an all-day trip. It is truly breathtaking and amazing. Here is the clip. It's going to be 20 minutes. I might interrupt on occasion.
SpaceX was able to launch Starship, and it made it off the launch pad, an incredibly successful day today. And then SpaceX board member Antonio Gracias, one of the first investors in SpaceX. Antonio, a big day for you. Maybe you could just tell the audience what happened today, why that is so important in the history of this company.
Today was extraordinarily important for SpaceX, I think for America and for humanity. And the Starship is the realization of the vision Elon had 20 years ago, 25 years ago, even as a child, really, to go to Mars. And the engineers here at SpaceX and all the entire team working extremely hard are really just to get this vehicle off the pad, as Elon has said, right? This is a brand new vehicle. Everything about it is new. So the engines, the material science, the structure, the design, all of it new. And the most important thing here was to get off the pad so we could collect data. And this technology platform is the platform that will allow us to go to Mars. So from a non-engineer standpoint, why this is important is that what we've proven with this flight, we got past a point called max Q, which is the point at which the vehicle takes maximum stress. That's how I think about it. I'm sure engineers will tell you a lot more description to it, or David Freeberg will give you a better description to it, but it's the most amount of stress in the vehicle, which means that this vehicle will get to orbit. And this is the vehicle that's going to take us to Mars. So today is the day that all of the hardworking people at SpaceX accomplished a goal of making the human race spacefaring. When we look back in history, I believe this will be the day when we mark the technological development that we broke through and built a vehicle that could actually go to Mars.
Now, when we look at it, obviously it didn't make it to orbit. Maybe you can give some context into what is the typical life cycle of a new rocket ship coming out. The Falcon, the original one, has done, I think, 224 missions, 222 of them successful. I think 160 or so actually landed themselves.
Yes.
And so you had 2 or 3 mulligans, I think, in the development of that, maybe 2 actually. So what can we expect here? When are they going to stack and rack and launch the next one? Antonio, what's the timeline here to getting to orbit? What would we expect versus some of the other projects that we've seen, like the Russian rockets?
So look, this is a brand new vehicle. And whenever we develop a brand new vehicle, it takes a long time development. You know, my understanding, all this is as again, a layman and sort of as a board member, not an executive here, is that it'll take at least, call it 2 or 3 months to really get the pad rebuilt and get another vehicle back on for testing, maybe longer. But it's really important to note here that we've gotten sort of used to the idea that SpaceX launches rockets and all these rockets come back and all those vehicles are stable because the Falcon 9 and 9 Heavy are so stable and they're so well engineered and they're amazing vehicles, the most reliable vehicles on Earth in human history. This is a brand new vehicle. This was a huge win. I mean, it was an enormous win for the company, an enormous win for the country, just getting it off the pad and collecting the data. And now we know it works. We just have to get it stable now and get up to orbit. So it's really a hard problem, but it's a solvable problem from here. And we learned here is that this vehicle does work.
Amazing.
Can you guys talk about like the impact of this vehicle, cost to launch, payload, like the big metrics that kind of help realize that outcome? Gavin, I think I saw you did a bunch of really good tweets on this. You shared some of the metrics that I thought were really succinct and really helpful.
Yeah, sure. So when this is, I think it's a long road to full reusability. The first step will be Mechazilla catching the booster. It doesn't have legs like the Falcon 9. And then the second step will be landing the Starship, which is really hard. But once you do that, they should be able to send over 100 metric tons to orbit at a variable cost of under $2 million per public data. These are public statements.
I would never confirm or deny those statements. But this is Gavin's math off the back of the envelope.
$2 million is the cost to get 100 tons into orbit. That's the metric.
Variable cost.
Variable cost.
So,
right.
But I think the point Gavin's making, if I might just
Please
add, is that it is a step function change. It's not like a small change. It's an enormous change.
Right. Can you compare that to the numbers before for folks to understand?
The Falcon 9 mass to useful orbit is 17 metric tons. And the variable cost that, I have seen Elon tweet about is somewhere around $15 million. So you are lifting more than 5 times the mass to orbit. And based on other statements, that 100 metric tons is a very conservative estimate. And you are doing it at, call it, 10 to 15% of the cost. So this is we can all do the math, but we can envelope it, roughly a 50x
Huge
change. And this, massively changes unit economics for Starlink, for sending anything into orbit.
That is freaking amazing. A 50x change. It's monumental. It is stupendous. When Elon Musk originally with SpaceX, he reduced the cost of going into space by 90%. Now you are able to carry a much, much larger payload into orbit, wherever you want to take it, at a much, much lower cost. It is stupendous. This is what private investment, this is what ingenuity is all about. This is what we are capable of. And Elon Musk is demonstrating the potential of the human race. Okay, you also out there, you have tremendous potential that is untapped. Elon Musk chooses to exercise that muscle, as can we all. And that's an encouraging statement for every single person. And it is a huge advancement for humanity. This is a white pill. This is fantastic.
And as Antonio said, it's great for SpaceX, it's great for America, and it's great for everyone on Earth.
It's great for humanity, yeah.
It's great for humanity.
Can you explain how that then translates into going to Mars? So now we can get 100 tons into orbit for $2 million. What happens next in terms of like how that payload capacity and low cost enables, full transport to Mars? And, I know that the timelines are tough, but it would be super helpful to translate the orbit concept into the let's go to Mars concept.
It's important to know that like the size of this thing, to give a sense of scale, is the interior space of it is the size of the International Space Station. So it's a huge amount of tonnage. Just think about all that's going to take to get to Mars, right? You'd have to lift a payload into orbit. You're going to have to, create a base either on the moon or in it's orbiting the Earth to actually refuel ships and send them out into space. And this same design will scale up to become the Mars Colonial Transporter, very similar design. That's why it's important. And look, the timeline on that, I don't know. I'm hoping that it will be, while I'm still able to go, that would be great, physically able to go. But that's really why it's important. Think of this as a small version of the same vehicle we will actually use to go to Mars. And then all the stuff you have to transport to orbit becomes more economic because, as Gavin just said, we've had a 50x kind of reduction in cost.
Can I ask you another question? Sorry, I don't mean to monopolize the questions, but these are things that I think are like super important questions, but that a lot of people often ask, or I hear them asking. But what happens with the space industry in the nearer term? So there's this great long-term goal, get to Mars. That's a big project. There'll certainly be funding, I'm sure, to run that project. But what other economies now emerge as this cost down of 50x happens? And what else do you think happens besides communications and Starlink? Obviously, there's that's already a pretty scaled business. What other markets can develop here in the near term? What other economies do you see happening as a result of this cost down?
Yeah, I mean, look, Gavin could jump in here too, but the reality is once you can take that much mass to orbit, you can move anything around the planet very quickly. You can kind of go up, let the Earth spin below you and come down. So transportation generally changes. If you want to fly to Tokyo from New York City, it goes from being, a day trip to a matter of hours. It's extraordinary.
Or a container ship in a couple hours, kind of
thing.
Yeah,
everything that's rapid transport around the Earth. You want to move packages around the Earth, everything gets faster. Kevin?
Yeah, there will be no more trans-Pacific or transatlantic cargo flights. I think in 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, you're going to need a big Starship fleet to accomplish that. But I think the transatlantic and trans-Pacific aerospace cargo routes go away.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing. Think about how much cheaper traveling around the world will be, where it will not just be a function of having the US dollar and being relatively well off, that you can travel back and forth to Asia 1 or 2 times a year, but it's going to be a couple-hour trip. As they stated, it's not even going to take 2 days to travel back and forth that it normally does, and I've done it a number of times. This is going to disrupt the transport industry, the airline industry. This disruption will send shockwaves around the Earth, and I'm sure, leave it in the comments, you guys, what you think this is going to disrupt all the potential industries. I haven't even given it a lot of thought, but I know that I'm excited about it. It's fantastic.
So transportation logistics, I think, is a fundamental change. Human transport, fundamental change. And then there's all the knock-on effects of building this kind of technology. Look, the space program, the American space program that took us to the moon, created the cell phones we use, right? I mean, there's so much, this chip designs, all the technology that came off of that, the same kind of effects we believe will happen here. So it's hard to predict, but it will be a lot of great stuff.
Well, and that's kind of the point. When you can get payload up there, now entrepreneurs can think of a million different crazy ideas and affordably put something up there.
Absolutely.
Whether they want to mine an asteroid or they have a science project. Now, 1,000 flowers, 1,000,000 flowers can bloom, and entrepreneurs can start thinking about it. And that's already happened to a certain extent with Falcon.
Yes.
That people are able to come up with great ideas. Well, I have to say.
And the inspiration it provides.
It does,
It's amazing to be here and feel the inspiration and just the joy.
I think that's what I was going to ask you about. If as we wrap here with you two, if you could take people inside mission control, which we were privileged enough to be in, the sense of history and the feeling in that room, if you could describe it for the audience, what those engineers were feeling and what you in fact felt at that moment, Antonio and then Gavin.
So I would start by juxtaposing with Monday. So we were here Monday.
We were here
Monday. And Monday, I think there was a real sense of concern. The countdown stopped around 10 minutes. The vehicle, we had a valve failure and the valve got stuck open basically. And we had to stop and kind of regroup. And by the way, from my perspective, that's like a solid success because the vehicle did not get destroyed in the pad, right? Which is like the number one thing to have happen here. Solid success. The second, and so that was kind of Monday. And I think Monday was, caution and intensity.
It was a very intense feeling.
Very intense feeling.
Will this ever happen?
Yeah.
When will it happen?
Yeah. Today, what I felt in that room was a sense of, there was a high sense of intensity, a high sense of focus, and also a sense of people were excited. There was an excitement about it. It felt different today. It felt more electric today. They were super focused, but you could feel the excitement in the room. They believed it was going to happen. They thought it was highly probable and that it was going to work. And when it did work, I would say it was a sense of elation and joy. And just, this is 20 plus years of work. And, Elon was there in the room with the engineers, and it just, seeing him light up, seeing the joy that he felt, seeing the joy the engineers felt together, for me, having been a board member here, an investor for a long time, and sort of been a bit along this company and seeing it develop, it brought a real sense of hope for what's going to happen to this country and what's happening to humanity, and a sense of joy to my heart.
Yeah. Gavin, do you have any emotional feelings there when you watch it you want to add?
Yeah, well, I think it's also just what always strikes me when I'm here is this is a sandy spit of land. There was no power, no electricity, no potable water, no sewage, no utilities, nothing. And out of this, sandy spit of desert, on the Gulf of Mexico, a extremely talented group of engineers for the last 5 years have lived in, these airstreams, a long way from a major city. And it is just an amazing place to visit. And, the sense of commitment. And when you talk to anyone at SpaceX, anyone here at Starbase, what are you trying to accomplish? Make humanity a multiplanetary species.
Yeah.
Get to Mars. Yeah. So just the experience of visiting Starbase is amazing. Second, I would just say launches are very visceral. It's shocking if you have not experienced one.
The ground shaking.
Yeah. Feeling in your chest. You feel it in your chest.
You feel your body shaking like an earthquake.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop.
And it's incredibly dramatic. The rocket, it's going so slow at first, and then it accelerates. And then you hear this enormous crackling noise that's, louder than any concert, louder than any, sports stadium. Then a blast of hot air hits you. You feel it. And I would say a lot of people at launches cry. It's a very emotional experience, often for people who are not emotional.
Yeah, it's hard not to get emotional, yeah.
I think just that human beings can accomplish something like this is amazing. And then what I would just say is, the rocket flew for 4 minutes and went through max Q. It went to 39 kilometers. The Soviet N-1, which was a comparable rocket, only reached 12 kilometers. Like, the team was ecstatic.
Yeah. The joy on their faces.
Happy, cheering.
You've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was very inspirational, and I felt very, very grateful to be there.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Can I leave with one thought of what I'm feeling right now?
Yeah.
The after effect.
The after effect, afterglow.
It's just an extraordinary sense of gratitude. I mean, there has been so much sacrifice here, and we have witnessed it over 20 years from Elon, of course, and the amount of just, unbelievable work done from him and the entire team here at SpaceX's engineers, everyone who works here.
Yeah.
It's been extraordinary, and it just really, I'm just deeply grateful.
This is what happens when you have a mission, something that beckons and calls you every single moment, that occupies every ounce of your energy, that your brain is thinking about, your body tingles when you're in the process of doing it. And it's not always fun, but this is the culmination of that effort. And it takes tremendous, as they say, sacrifice, years of it in order to get to this achievement. And when you listen to these guys talk, you just feel it. It's very calm. It's the afterglow. It's the kind of calming down period, the kind of post-orgasm, if you want to call it that. But it is a beautiful, beautiful moment. And it just shows the ingenuity that is possible, that once again, that we all have this potential. And maybe we're not all rocket scientists like they are at SpaceX, but gosh darn it, there's something out there that you can do that you're not putting your full effort towards, that I'm not putting my full effort towards, because it's not easy. But this is inspirational, and I'm so grateful just to listen to this talk. Phenomenal.
It's great to hear that perspective, because you would not have gotten it from off the Twitter feed, from the mainstream media.
David, if you'd come here with us, you could have gotten yourself.
Yeah, David, you were invited.
You were invited. We almost Shanghaied you from Miami. There's a new term called Starship as opposed to Shanghai. We're going to Shanghai you from Miami.
We're going to Starship you.
We're going to Starship you next time.
Yeah, I'm bummed I couldn't be there, but I'm excited to see how excited you guys are. And just the point I was making is that when I was reading the mainstream media coverage of this, it was almost like ghoulish. It was like a type of glee. It was almost like an excitement, right? that the rocket blew up, but they didn't really mention any of the things you're mentioning. I mean, from the point of view of the people who are there, it was a triumph, and it was exciting because of the data that was collected and the fact that this rocket even got off the Earth. It achieved its goal. It flew up for 4 minutes, but the media never really conveyed that. So thank you for giving us a perspective that you just would not have gotten today from the New York Times or other mainstream media.
And just to add to that, just a little bit of context, this is an iterative design process with rapid improvement. This Starship had 31 engines that were made over the course of 1 year, had different tolerances, behaved unpredictably. This was far from the best Starship. The one that's going to launch in 3 months or 2 months or 4 months or 5 months or whenever it is, They've already made over 1,000 discrete improvements to it. And that was before they got all the data for today. And then there's a Starship after that, and after that. So I think that's
it really
context.
is what the mainstream media just failed to understand is the process under which a new rocket platform is deployed and how revolutionary this is. They are iterating at a speed here that I don't think people can comprehend.
I mean, on this note, what's important is
they don't care. They don't care, and it was a way to paint somebody who they dislike and they are threatened by in a negative light. The front page of the Wall Street Journal says SpaceX's Starship explodes shortly after launching uncrewed test flight. If you take Antonio Gracias' explanation, which was articulate and transparent and fair, and this headline, you could not be more further apart on the spectrum of truth. Antonio just said that this is a day, this is for the audience, of which there are millions of people now. Antonio said, this is the day that you look back on when we are multiplanetary as this Cambrian moment, if you will, this incredible point of innovation and human ingenuity and teamwork and sacrifice. You know, Gavin said it as well, just giving up 5 years of your life to move in the middle of nowhere, live in an Airstream trailer. And then the Wall Street Journal, whose basically perspective is, the
rocket goes boom.
I mean,
it was just fireworks. It was just a fireworks display, right?
But this just demonstrates how powerful the mainstream media is, because most people get their news from the headline. They don't go in depth like you guys are right now who are watching, who are witnessing what the engineers, the investors, the executives at SpaceX are describing, how Jason Calacanis, who was at the launch, how they are describing how the events unfolded and the true meaning of it. But the framing that the media gives you is a one-shot hit that people take in, and this colors their view of the world, and it describes the power of the media. I think that they're going to show a few clips coming up of the various New York Times headlines, CNN, etc. It is all painting it with a negative brush. Yes, it is an accurate news reporting, but it isn't really what went on. If you expect your Starship to blow up before launch, or you think it's a 50-50 and it takes off and goes 4 minutes and you get all the data as they state from it, that far exceeded expectations. It is a spectacular success, and yet they're framing it as an utter failure.
I sent a note to my own team today. I just said, look, please ignore the news media.
Yeah.
It's total BS. This is a huge success.
Fake news.
It's a huge success. And, we should just step back for a second and enjoy the success, because part of the problem with the news media is this is a moment that should galvanize our country. I mean, SpaceX
is about America.
SpaceX is an American company.
This is about America.
Well, I think they can't see that it galvanizes, potentially galvanizes support for a human being that they feel deeply threatened by. And that's what it all comes down to ultimately. And that's what you see in the headlines. That's why what's so interesting about this is that the behavior of the mainstream media to now paint this as something unsuccessful or a joke or rocket goes boom or fireworks, when you look back on something as meaningful as this, it'll just make them even less credible. That's unfortunately what they're doing to themselves, is shooting themselves in the foot.
It's pretty sad. Yeah, and this wasn't just Wall Street Journal. This is CNN, New York Times. Everybody just painted it as a failure. And it's like, oh, here's a collection of headlines. Well done, producer Nick. I mean, literally, you would think if you read the mainstream media that SpaceX failed. And it really, when I was talking to Elon months ago about this, he said, listen, 50-50, we get off the launch pad.
Yeah.
If we can get off the launch pad and we don't blow up the launch pad, that's a huge success. The fact that this thing got as far as it is in 4 minutes, and they got all that data, and they've got, when you see the scale of this factory, and I hope you all get to come down here and all Americans get to see this, because for me, and being friends with Elon for as long as I have, and to watch him go from the idea of this, and he showed me, I went with Elon to see the Hawthorne factory when he was considering renting it. And from that moment to now, to see the suffering that he went through personally to do this, and the team, the amount of suffering to get to this point has been so tremendous. But when you go to the Gigafactory in Texas, when you see what's happening here at Starbase, it should let you know that this is still the greatest country in the world with the greatest entrepreneurs And he is truly the greatest entrepreneur of our lifetime. And I'm not just saying that because he's my bestie. I'm saying it because it's objectively true. And when you see headlines in the press, look at what has been accomplished. Look at the Teslas on the road. Look at what happened with this rocket ship and judge the man by what has been produced to date and understand he's going to keep going. And the team he has inspired is relentless. I sat there on the deck an hour or two after all this went down, and I just ate some chips and salsa with a half dozen of the people who were in mission control. They love the podcast. They listen to every episode of All In. I kid you not. And they said, will you talk about this on All In? I said, will we talk about this on All In? Thank you for what you've done for humanity. This is the most inspiring thing I've experienced in my whole life.
We love you guys.
We love you guys, SpaceX. Charge ahead, be relentless as you've been, and know that despite these absolutely insignificant headlines, what you're doing is so meaningful to every American and every human on this planet. Don't stop. Go faster, go harder, be more relentless. We're all cheering and we're in awe of you.
This is one topic we can all agree on.
This is something that can galvanize America.
This should be a moment of inspiration.
We are leading the world again.
Yes.
We're leading the world in the space race again. We're going to be on the moon. We're going to be on Mars.
What about Uranus?
Well,
I hope that you guys have been inspired. I know that I'm inspired. I think this is a beautiful moment for humanity. And you would not get that if you just looked at the headlines in the mainstream media that want to present everything as a disaster unless they're able to up welfare payments to the needy. Well, imagine if Elon Musk had been given welfare and he just didn't feel like getting out of bed and working. Because, for example, I know that happened to me when I was in dire need of money and nobody gave me anything, and I went out there and I worked my ass off. This is the inspirational stuff that everybody has the ability to do. Maybe not to the same extent that Elon Musk has done it, but you in your own way can go out and do this as well. But when people just give you something that tempers the hunger, that momentarily satiates you and reduces the fire that is in your belly to go out and create, then we miss out on your potential that elevates the world. So I guess I just say, be inspired by Elon Musk. Know that this is a monumental day for planet Earth, for you, for your loved ones, and for all of humanity. And what this will bring, the technology, will vastly improve the planet. And I'm so grateful to be alive in this moment and to be able to witness it, and grateful for Elon, and grateful, hopefully, that even out there, maybe this has awakened the sleeping giant that is within you, that will express itself and manifest some form of greatness in whatever manner that is.